So the talk today is on complaining mind. Is not because I received a vision during a long 5-day deepened state of meditation. No, it's because, well, I have caught myself doing a little bit of complaining the past 2 weeks. Okay, I'll fess up. It's a lot of complaining the past 2 weeks. However, I am not here to complain about complaining mind. I'm actually here this morning to celebrate it. So let's unpack complaining. There are some studies that suggest that there are a couple different flavors of complaints and complaining. So let's look at the first one. The first one we might call venting. Venting. And this venting of stuff that's going on, these experiences and things that are happening in your life, although it may seem like venting, and we're always quick to say, oh, but I'm just venting, it's kind of important to notice that's actually just the ego mind's attempt at relabeling complaining, making it kind of okay. Oh, it's just venting. Oh, we'll keep going. The second flavor is what my research shows is communitarian complaining. That's kind of a nice big $20 word, communitarian. And communitarian is not so much about unloading energy with someone as much as it is fusing with someone. This is that complaining where we're marshaling the troops and we get everybody to kind of complain together with us into this grand chorus, tabernacle choir of complaining together. And it kind of feels good. It makes it okay again, doesn't it? Especially when you can get some other people to join in with you. Oftentimes, if we can engage mindfulness in that situation, we'll notice that what we're after, or the hit that we get, is sympathy. Oh, so rough for you. So it's a little bit of sympathy. The third flavor of complaining is instrumental complaining. Instrumental complaining. And this is kind of an oblique way to ask for help. So that's that complaining like, darn, I dropped my hairbrush. Kind of waiting to see if somebody picks it up, right? This is that kind of socially acceptable way of seeking help by kind of doing a little bit of a complaining dance to see if somebody can help you. And of course, nudged in right there underneath the radar is this hope that someone will fix this situation. Someone will save me, as if we were completely and totally helpless. And the fourth flavor of complaining is the basic complaint. This is the raw, naked complaint that wishes for one's self or one's circumstances to be different than the way they are. Hello, definition of suffering. When the mind wants things to be different than the way they actually are. Shoulds, shouldn'ts, oh, I wish this and I wish that. So, what are some of your favorite topics for complaining? Finances? How about health? That's always a good one. There's that knee again. Must be about ready to rain. How about the actions or personalities of other people? Ooh, this is fertile ground for complaining. If they would only do it this way. if they would only understand my point of view, if they would only stop getting in my way. And of course, political leaders in government, oh, well, that's always a favorite. Easy one to get to. And at the root of complaining is the first noble truth in Buddhism. It's that unsatisfactory quality of life, that element of suffering that dukkha means. It means a large number of things, but underneath it all, it's basically that life has an element of suffering and dissatisfaction to it, which is why this is the number one truth in Buddhism. So that's why complaining mind is such a prevalent thing. It's such an easy road to take. It's such an easy rut to get stuck into. This is why this is the first noble truth. So I have some good news on several levels. Number one, complaining is fertile ground for mindfulness practice and waking up to our true nature, realizing that much of what happens up here is structural, not contextual. Plug in anything you want, and the mind will do the same thing with it. And this isn't good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just important that we see this. And in seeing it, we're able to cultivate the observer, the one who knows. And the second piece of good news is that actually not all complaining is bad. Consider, for example, if you will, talking to a doctor, a mental health professional, a spiritual counselor. My teacher, when I would go to him and I'd be complaining, I'd say, man, we have a lot to talk about today. This person just won't stop harassing me. And I've never seen someone light up so much in their life. Oh, good, good, good. I'm in misery here. Because he recognizes that this is fertile ground. We've got something to chew on, something to work with here, something to follow back into truth. And so if you'll notice, in talking with a doctor or a spiritual counselor or a mental health professional, there's a descriptive quality to the complaining, a descriptive quality. What's the old joke? Well, doc, it hurts when I touch here, when I touch here, when I touch here, when I touch here. So what's the problem? He goes, it's your finger. But the point is that it's that descriptive quality versus complaining because things are not right in my life. And these people aren't doing things the right way. And so this is our opportunity. You've often heard me say that eventually as your practice matures, you will come to a point where books, videos, magazines, teachers, although they are wonderful and an important reference, they cease becoming the focal point. And what becomes the focal point in your practice is experience. And as these experiences come together, they're like numbers on a combination lock. When 2 or 3 or 4 experiences happen, and all of a sudden you put them together, and you're like, oh, because those experiences offer a contrast, and it is the contrast that opens the doors. So for example, if you can be mindful and notice the contrast between describing a complaint about something to someone, like a mental health professional or a spiritual counselor, and then talking with somebody about wishing that lady in the 3rd cubicle would stop being so picky or filing her nails all during lunch or blah, 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 whatever the complaints are. Notice the density and the heaviness around that kind of complaining versus the descriptive quality of complaining? Wouldn't it be interesting to try describing what the lady in the third cubicle is doing as opposed to complaining about it? This is how experience can become our teacher. 2 or 3 of these add up and start to make a difference. So complaining, as we have seen, can take 2 people. So if someone casually says, "Hey, how are you?" and the way you respond is a complaint, then it feels kind of heavy. It's the feeling nature. The complaining is our signpost. When someone complains, or if it's yourself complaining, as I noticed this week, I caught myself. This is the benefit of mindfulness practice. There was a heaviness to it, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. It's a one-way communication. There's no acknowledgement of a potential response. It's just bleh. Here's all the things that's wrong in my world. What are they supposed to say? Sucks to be you. So a complaint just sits there, proclaiming a viewpoint. On the other hand, if the questioner is inviting a burden to be shared, such as a spiritual counselor or mental health professional, then the exchange can feel completely interconnected and equal. It is in the listening as well as the transmission in what will emerge. There's an opportunity here. And that sharing is cut off with complaining. So in this way, complaining can be defined by how does it feel? Mindfulness. How does it feel in the body? And this feeling in turn arises when the complainer, perhaps you're the person listening, is not owning their own perceived suffering. It's the disowning of reality, as if things should be different than the way they are, creating this illusory set of circumstances that absolutely do not exist. And it is that type of complaining that is essentially sharing feels to the listener quite different from basic complaining. So if you do not know which type of complaining that you are engaged in, you can ask yourself, where's this coming from? See if you can bring in a moment of presence, a moment of mindfulness. And it's not that we want you to judge or beat yourself up or go, oh God, I'm just complaining, I'm so sorry here, let me wipe all that complaining off of you. It's not that. If in a moment of seeing the complaining, of feeling it, if you can feel it, oh, that's a moment of joy. You've seen it. You have woken up to it instead of being caught up in it. I want to share with you a poem by 19-year-old, wow, people are waking up younger and younger and younger. 19-year-old Francis Serra, in his little poem called, "Do You Have a Complaint?" Complaining is a talent given to me from the universe. I've concluded that it's my one true gift. Is it possible that I'm just a poet, or will this talent somehow drift? I complain and I complain. No wonder I'm so misleading as I emulate the mind of a person of strength, but speak the words of fear and bleeding. I'm complaining about complaining. How ironic this seems to be. Short words with longer meanings. I complain so much, I forget that I'm free. What really touched me with this poem was the last line, waking up to it. Awareness unties every knot we have, and it is the seeing that is important. Nothing else needs to be done. That's the good news. That's the joy of the path. Just seeing it. So, What are we to do? So a few antidotes to complaining, some things to consider, some ways to include this into your practice. Meditating on impermanence is a good start. As, of course, you've heard many teachers say, complain, 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 this too shall pass. And then I go back to him and I'm like, you're right, everything's awesome, this is so much joy and bliss, I love it. And this too shall pass. Meditating on compassion is also very helpful. When our mind is imbued with compassion, like what we do with loving kindness practice, then we do not see others as obstacles. We see that they may have harmful actions because they simply wish to be happy, but do not know the correct method for attaining happiness. They are, in fact, just like us, imperfect, limited, sentient beings who want happiness, not suffering. Meditating on the nature of cyclic existence is another antidote. Seeing that we and others are under the influence of ignorance, anger, clinging, fear. In seeing this, we abandon the idealistic visions that things should be a certain way. A friend of mine is always saying, sometimes when I hear them complain, or I'm sorry, when they hear me complain, they're like, well, this is cyclic existence. What did you expect? That yin-yang symbol, creation and destruction, always happening, always moving. Everything is in the process of becoming something else, including us, including relationships. And in Shantideva's book, A Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, if something can be changed, then simply work to change it. If it cannot, why worry? Why be upset? Why complain? And one other note. In the presence of complaining, how shall we be? And I've learned this little lesson. My dear sweet mother has had so many things happen to her. You name it, and she's had it. Cancer, heart valve replacement, mastectomy, dementia's setting in, varicose veins. And so she's sometimes prone to complaining. And the trap in complaining is that it's addictive. It actually creates neuroplasticity and shapes the brain to kind of fall into this. Because remember, we get a hit from complaining. We get sympathy, or somebody saves us and fixes something. As if we were completely helpless and not in control of our own present moment beingness. And so what I have learned over the past few years as she has fallen to complaining is just a couple little tricks. Probably the most effective one for me is to simply acknowledge and let her know that I hear her. And then I will move to a playful comment of some sort. Talking about finances or money, she often complains about that. And she has her little dog, Abby, who reminds me of like that little dog on the Grinch that's always, carrying these heavy loads. I says, well, Mama, we're going to have to put Abby to work then. That's it. We're going to put a sign on her and send her out to the curb and be a, free hugs or something like that, or $1 a hug, and put her to work. And this always gets a chuckle out of her, and it's amazing how that is some way to kind of help shift that energy, because she doesn't see that she's stuck in the complaining. It's just this form expressing dissatisfaction, expressing dukkha. So if you ever needed proof of the First Noble Truth, next time someone complains, oh, cool, thanks for pointing out dukkha. And they'll be like, What is he talking about?